Let's continue reading Flora and Ulysses with Chapter 54. Dear Flora, he will defend the defenseless. He will protect the weak. He will write a poem. The kitchen was dark, lit only by the light above the stove. The squirrel was alone, but he had the strange feeling of not being alone. It was almost as if a cat were watching him. Had Mr. Klaus tracked him down? Was he hiding in the shadows waiting to exact his revenge? Cat revenge was a terrible thing. Cats never forgot an insult. Never. And to be thrown down a hallway, backward by a squirrel, was a terrible insult. Ulysses held himself very still. He put his nose up in the air and sniffed, but he didn't smell cat. He smelled smoke. Flora's mother stepped out of the shadows and into the muted light of the kitchen. "So," she said, "I see you helped yourself to my typewriter again. Put your little squirrel paws all over it." She took another step forward. She put the cigarette in her mouth and reached out with both hands and yanked the paper from the typewriter. The rollers screamed in protest. Flora's mother crumpled the poem, without looking at it, without reading one word of it, and dropped the paper on the floor. "So," she said. She exhaled a ring of smoke, and the circle floated in the dim light of the kitchen, a beautiful, mysterious O. As he considered the cigarette smoke suspended in the air above him, Ulysses felt a wave of joy and sorrow, both things at once. He loved the world. He loved all of it, smoke rings and lonely squids and giant donuts and Florabelle Buckman's round head and all the wonderful thoughts inside of it. He loved William Spiver and his expanding universe. He loved Mr. George Buckman and his hat and the way he looked when he laughed. He loved Dr. Measham and her watery eyes and her jelly sandwiches. He loved Tootie, who had called him a poet. He loved the stupid little shepherdess. He even loved Mr. Klaus. He loved the world, this world. He didn't want to leave. Flora's mother reached past him and picked up a blank piece of paper and rolled it into the typewriter. "You want to type?" she said. He nodded. He did want to type. He loved typing. "Okay, let's type. You are going to type what I say." But that went against the whole point of typing what someone else said. "Dear Flora," said Flora's mother. Ulysses shook his head. "Dear Flora," said Flora's mother again in a louder, more insistent voice. Ulysses looked up at her. Smoke exited her nostrils in two thin streams. "Do it," she said. Slowly, slowly, the squirrel typed the words, "Dear Flora." And then, stunned into a dumb willingness, he typed every terrible, untrue word that came out of Phyllis Buckman's mouth. The squirrel took dictation. Chapter 55, A Stone Squirrel. When he was finished, Flora's mother stood over his shoulder, reading and nodding and saying, "That's right, that ought to do it. There are a few misspellings, but then you're a squirrel. Of course you're going to misspell things." She lit another cigarette and leaned against the kitchen table and considered him. "I guess it's time," she said. "Wait here. I'll be right back." And he did as she said. He waited. She left the kitchen, and he simply sat there unmoving. It was as if she had put a spell on him. It was as if typing the lies, the wrong words, had depleted him of all ability to act. Once, long ago, in a garden of springtime, Ulysses had seen a squirrel made of stone, gray, hollow-eyed, frozen. In his stone paws he held a stone acorn that he would never get to consume. That squirrel was probably in the garden now, still holding that acorn, still waiting. "I am a stone squirrel," thought Ulysses. "I can't move." He looked over at the words he had typed. They were untrue words. Several of them were misspelled. There was no joy in them, no love, and worst of all, they were words that would hurt Flora. He turned slowly. He sniffed his tail, and as he sniffed, he remembered the words that Flora had shouted at him in the giant donut. "Remember who you are. You're Ulysses." This helpful advice had been followed by a single, powerful word: act. He heard the sound of footsteps. What should he do? What action should he take? He should type. He should type a word. But what word? No more typing. Chapter 56, Kidnapped. She woke with a start. The house was incredibly dark, so dark that Flora wondered if she had gone temporarily blind. "Ulysses?" she said. She sat up and stared in the direction of the door. Slowly, the rectangular outline of it appeared, and then she could see that it was ajar. "Ulysses?" she said again. She got out of bed and went down the darkened stairs and past the little shepherdess. "You stupid lamp," she said. She made her way into the kitchen. It was empty. The typewriter was unmanned, or unsquirreled. "Ulysses?" said Flora. She walked over to the typewriter, saw a piece of paper glowing white in the dim light. "Uh-oh," she said. She leaned in close. She squinted. "Dear Flora, I am terribly fond of you, but I hear the call of the wild, and I must return to my natural habitat. Thank you for the macaroni and cheese. Yours, Mr. Squirrel." Mr. Squirrel? Call of the wild? Terribly fond? It was the biggest lie that Flora had ever read in her life. It didn't look like Ulysses had written it at all. Only at the very end did the truth appear. 2 letters, F and L. That was Ulysses. She knew, trying to type her name one last time, trying to tell her that he loved her. "I love you too," she whispered to the paper. And then she looked around the kitchen. What kind of cynic was she, whispering "I love you" to a squirrel who wasn't even there? But she did love him. She loved his whiskers. She loved his words. She loved his happiness, his little head, his determined heart, his nutty breath. She loved how beautiful he looked when he flew. She felt her heart seize up. Why hadn't she told him that? She should have said those words to him. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was finding him. Flora hadn't been reading The Criminal Element for 2 solid years for nothing. She knew what was going on. The squirrel had been kidnapped. By her mother. She took a deep breath. She considered what to do, what action to take. In the event of a true and genuine emergency, an absolute and undeniable crime, the authorities must be notified immediately, said the criminal element. Flora was certain that this was a true and genuine emergency, an absolute and undeniable crime. Still, it didn't seem like a good idea to notify the authorities. If she called the police, what would she say? My mother kidnapped my squirrel? The criminal element. If for some reason the authorities are not accessible to you, then you must seek help in other quarters. Whom do you trust? Whom do you know to be a safe port in a storm? Flora suddenly remembered her dream, how warm William Spiver's hand had felt in her own. She blushed. Whom did she trust? Good grief, she trusted William Spiver.